Hello again, I am Blunty, and that is of course Monster Hunter Wilds. The marketing push is well underway right now. Capcom have been doing the rounds, showing it off in a custom-built playable demo form at conventions like the Gamescom Expo, Tokyo Game Show, PAX, Paris Games Week. A small handful of hand-picked content creators have had some level of exclusive hands-on time with it under the watchful eye of the devs and PR teams. There's been streams and whatnot, but if you got to this video within the first 24 hours after upload at least, today is the day when the vast majority of us can finally prepare for our own hands-on and get our very first proper taste of how Monster Hunter Wilds looks and feels and moves and indeed performs on our own screens and commanded by our own hands. So, in this video, I wanted to get you all squared away with getting the beta installed and knowing the instant you can start playing it. Also, something easy to miss, but there's some PlayStation 5 specific in-game feature stuff that kind of slipped under the radar a little bit quietly, and we need to have a look at that too, because it is not all as it seems. Sony's got a Sony after all. So first, let's talk stop calling it a demo, it is a beta test. Other creators? Stop it! Not a demo, it's a beta. PlayStation users get first bite, with PlayStation Plus subscribers getting exclusive early access to what's being called a beta test, officially, not a demo. And there is a distinction, as I talked about late last week in this video on screen there. So if you're wondering why I'm getting so uptight about this, it's not just because I'm autistic, but it matters. God damn it. And pre-download for that beta is scheduled to begin on Monday, October the 28th, 2024 at 3 a.m. UTC, or about half a day's time from when I get this video up, if it does indeed go up as planned. If you need to convert that time into your local time zone to make things easier, just punch it into Google, and Google should offer up the local conversion time for you as a first result. But that is the pre-download. Actual access to play will unlock 24 hours after that. So you've got a full day to get the pre-install done, which will be about 29 gigabytes worth, which should be enough for most people, even on wibbly internet connections. For non-PlayStation Plus members on PlayStation and players on PC and Xbox Series X and S, pre-download is scheduled to begin Thursday, October the 31st, 2024, 3 a.m. UTC, unlocking 24 hours after that. And for this second session, you won't need either PlayStation Plus or Xbox Game Pass for access. It is only the early access that needs an active PlayStation Plus subscription. Though, of course, the full release of the game, you will need Game Pass or PlayStation Plus for online functionality, because that's how the consoles work. I covered this in my other video on everything you need to know about the demo, but it's worth repeating here because I've seen a lot of people asking about it and being confused by it. Yes, you need to be online for the beta to work, and while you don't need to actually engage with multiplayer itself, there is no offline mode at all. It's a beta test, and a big part of what is being tested are the online functions and other telemetry that is being actively sent back to the devs. Again, this is one of the big distinctions between a beta and a demo. So, no offline mode, and no, you won't be able to play it after the published access period. The 7 days total access from the PlayStation Plus early access to close of the beta on November the 4th is all we get, so make the most of it. That said, I do expect an actual demo to be released shortly before launch, probably about 6 weeks before launch, if the pattern holds from the other games. Now then, that's that sorted. About those PlayStation exclusive features. We've already seen that Capcom have some kind of deal with Sony already, granting them early access to the beta for PlayStation Plus subscribers exclusively, but it doesn't stop there. Again, as I mentioned in the other video about the beta in general, it's not too shocking to see preferential treatment of PlayStation players from Capcom on this. Monster Hunter itself, as a series, was born on PlayStation 2 a little over 20 years ago now, under a mandate to deliberately create a game that worked with the then very brand new concept of an online console. And before Monster Hunter World came along, almost 7 years back now, the game was always exclusive to either PlayStation consoles or Nintendo consoles. So the Monster Hunter team and PlayStation go way back. And 4 days ago, when Capcom had their showcase stream for Wilds, where they showed off the new map zone, the new monsters, the new story elements, and announced this beta, there was one place where the content of that live stream was actually different. PlayStation's channel, which had a bit glued onto the end of the stream talking about the exclusive features of the PlayStation 5 version, or maybe exclusive features. Not really exclusive features, but kind of sort of soft exclusive features, because they didn't actually say the word exclusive, to be fair. What they said was special gaming experience on PlayStation 5, not only PlayStation 5. So there's some weasel room there. A little wiggle space in how they worded this. Now, most of the stuff, of course, swings around the hardware gimmicks of the PlayStation 5 and its controller in particular, the DualSense. Starting with haptic feedback. Now, while the PlayStation 5 is hardly the only controller option with haptics, it is very functionally slightly differently implemented on PlayStation with their DualSense. So it may indeed be that various vibrations and rumbles from environmental stuff and weapon crashes and weather effects and whatever are, a bit more finely tuned, a bit more higher fidelity on the DualShock than the Xbox controller by comparison. A controller that obviously Xbox gamers, but also statistically far more likely PC players will be using for this game. That said, Steam does fully support the PlayStation 5 as a native controller option, so that's where the weasel wording starts to sneak in on us, because it's possible, if not indeed likely, PC players will have at least some of what's on offer here if they play with a DualSense controller on their PC. No guarantee about it though, because Sony are kind of weird about this stuff, and the way the controller works on PC is a little flaky sometimes. As many of you may know, certain DualSense controller features don't even work properly on the PC unless you use the damn thing wired, which probably a good idea anyway, considering the absolutely garbage battery life the DualSense has, the worst of any controller I've ever used in friggin' decades. Anyway, next. The integrated speaker. They're promising the sounds of endemic critters and your sacred mount will be squirting out of this thing. I'll be turning it off if given the option, frankly. Not only is it pointless when playing with headphones, as I always do when streaming at least, of course, but in general, it just sounds like shit. That tiny, tinny, low-volume, incredibly 1980s transistor AM radio-sounding ear insult that spews out of the controller's tiny onboard speaker is just bad. It's bad. It sounds bad. There has literally never been a single game I have ever played on the PlayStation 5 where this little speaker made immersion better instead of being distracting or just, bad. It's a gimmick in the truest sense of the derisive meaning of the word. If you are someone who has appreciated the inbuilt speaker, genuinely as something helpful in the game, instead of just being oh, that's funny, what a fun little gimmick, please let me know on the down below. I won't believe you, but I'd like to hear about it. That was unnecessarily mean, Blunty. Cut it out. Next up, something genuinely attractive. 3D audio simulation through what PlayStation brands as Tempest 3D Audio. Now, the Tempest audio engine is a software-based system that uses some hardware acceleration within the console's AMD GPU to simulate spatial audio, 3D audio. And it's pretty highly regarded. It works really rather nicely. For the less nerdy out there, you can think of it as kind of like ray tracing, but for sound instead of light. It, tracks where sound would bounce off stuff in the environment and tries to simulate that through your headphones or your speakers to make it sound like it's 3D. It's pretty clever stuff, frankly. However, this too is not really a promise that only PS5 users get fancy 3D audio, because Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Rise both already had 3D audio across PC and Xbox and PlayStation 4. So it's more than likely Wilds will have 3D audio cross-platform as well. It's just singled out here because Sony brands their 3D audio as Tempest to try and make it sound special. But in truth, spatial audio is basically a given no matter where you play. And on PC and Xbox, it'll probably be Dolby Atmos, or maybe even Microsoft's own platform implementation, which they call Microsoft Spatial Sound. A little more descriptive, if less fancy than Tempest sounds, eh? Now, there is an argument to be made that the PlayStation 5's implementation using Tempest might be a bit better in a side-by-side comparison. Truth is, though, it's basically just a number on a paper argument that shouldn't really swing anyone's actual real-world buying choices, because the only place you're going to notice the difference is in a side-by-side anyway. And even that isn't a guarantee. Tempest is often better, but not always. Now, back to the controller again, with, of course, what is the DualSense flagship gimmick, the adaptive triggers. Personally speaking, I've hated this in many games, in which it's more of a constant annoying distraction than any useful tool for immersion or gameplay features, but in some games, it has actually been used a little more smartly, a little more subtly, for a fun experience. Spider-Man comes to mind, for example. I quite liked it in that. But it's a very subjective thing, I think, really. And can be turned off, thankfully. If it is badly used, you don't like it. Or you'd rather have slightly better battery life than the catastrophe of the PlayStation 5's power use, which is only worsened by running the haptic motors for the triggers, of course. In any case, once more, this is also unlikely to be a true PlayStation 5 exclusive features, as again, the PC can use the PlayStation 5's controller's adaptive triggers as well. This is already true in many first-party Sony games which have ported across the PC, although this again is one of those features that only works when the controller is connected through a wire, doesn't work wirelessly. But finally, the motion sensors. Again, PC can do this too, and not just while using a PlayStation 5 controller this time around, but a Nintendo Switch Pro controller's motion sensor works, Joy-Cons work, and several other third-party options all can tie their own motion sensors into Steam input just fine. It works perfectly. In fact, it works better than PlayStation 5 because you have a lot more nuanced control through Steam and in fine-tuning how this works and its sensitivity and its range and all that kind of stuff. And again, it is something that Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak already did on PC. So you can very safely count on it being on PC for Wilds as well. However, this is one thing that might be a choice maker for console-only gamers trying to choose between the Xbox or the PlayStation 5 version of the game. Whatever other differences there might be in presentation, in performance, in resolution, whatever, this might be one of those key deciding features. Because with cross-play, you don't have an issue with isolated multiplayer communities anymore, which is why Monster Hunter World always sucked to play on Xbox, even though it performed better there. It had the smallest player base for multiplayer, so it was the worst choice between the two. But if you are a ranged player who might enjoy the extra nuance and fidelity motion-assisted aiming provides, this is one feature that might actually matter, that is missing from Xbox. Or hell, even if you are a melee weapon user, you've still got the slinger and its related projectiles, hooks and nets and whatnot, and the new focus mode weapon ability that motion-assisted aiming could noticeably improve for you. This is a genuine gameplay thing that could matter. Personally speaking, again, outside of Breath of the Wild's bow, I've very rarely found motion-assisted aiming something I am much interested in using. To me, it always feels a bit too floaty and awkward and imprecise. And in a game where aiming really matters, I will just use keyboard and mouse on PC, frankly. But I do know a lot of gamers, and console gamers of course, who do truly love motion-assisted aiming and complain rather loudly when it's missing from a game that could benefit from it. These are usually younger console-only gamers who grew up with this, alongside the Nintendo Switch, for example, as opposed to older OG gamers. But the point is, this is the one true important difference, certainly between Xbox and PlayStation versions, for many, because it's the one genuinely gameplay useful gimmick that the Xbox simply cannot do. So, do let me know in the down below which of these actually matter to you and if they've informed your thoughts on making a platform choice. Me, I'll be on PC of course, where the game will look its best, perform its best, and also opens me up to the wacky world of Monster Hunter modding, which, oh my god, if you've never come across it before, the modding community for Monster Hunter is, it's a thing. I'm sure we'll get to that down the track though. But I have to be honest, I do honestly like the console convenience, the very little friction between just turning it on and getting playing. It's really nice on a console. And it is a fact that I own Monster Hunter Rise on every platform it was released on, and I own Monster Hunter World on PC and PlayStation, so I wouldn't be shocked if at some point I was tempted to wind up with a PlayStation copy alongside my PC copy, but of course, once more, cross-play makes that a lot less of a necessity than it once was. One of the main reasons I own World on PlayStation is because the player community there is the biggest. So for Wilds, absolutely PC is first priority for me. But, you know, we'll see how we go. And of course, I will be playing and streaming on PlayStation 5 for the Wilds beta, because you get first bite of the cherry there. I'll switch over to PC when that becomes available, though. But yeah, follow me over on Twitch if you want to hang out and join the excitement and whatnot. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Thank you to my supporters and patrons. Appreciate that very, very much. I am Blunty, and we'll catch you next time.